Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast Why You Do What You Do, the podcast that talks about human development and psychology to try and help you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about, the question, should high school students work part-time or not? And the answer was basically, it does depend on the kid. Most kids can work and not have a problem, with school, but some kids they might. So again, one size does not fit all. So we're going to take back up on that. Other studies suggest that such factors as advancement opportunity, the chance to learn useful skills, and the kinds of responsibilities adolescents have at work may determine whether the experience is positive or negative. So, just like any place else, if it's a good workplace and they're having a good experience, they're happy with it, and they're gonna, continue to be happy with work. If it's a negative experience in a negative place, they're not gonna be so happy with that, and that might set the tone for their future work life, and that's a shame. Vocational planning is one aspect of an adolescent's search for identity. It's part of growing up. Who am I? What do I want out of life? Finding a job and deciding whether you like it or not, that's part of life. It's practice. The question, what shall I do, is very close to who shall I be? And some people get out and start getting into the field that they wanted in so bad when they were a kid, and this is what they plan for all their life, and then they get to a certain point where they're like, this is not what I want anymore. I'd rather do this other thing. And so they switch it up. But that's what being young is all about. That's what being in your 20s is all about. Figuring out what you want, who you are, and what you want to do with the rest of your life. So that's why, I caution young people to not get married in their 20s. Wait till they're 30. And they got a foundation under them. And then start bringing little people into the world when you're like 31. Between 31 and 35 is the optimal years. Psychologists all say, because, then you're mature enough to teach a little person. When you're younger and trying to figure out who you are and get some foundation under you, you might have the patience or the knowledge to help this little person up in the world. People who feel they are doing something worthwhile and doing it well feel good about themselves, needless to say, because what comes easy to you, what you can do well, that's what's going to make you happy, because that's what you're going to like, because you can do it well. Those who feel that their work does not matter or that they are not good at it may wonder about the meaning of their lives. And there are people, who are like that. And there are people who, have midlife crises, who wake up one day and say, oh my gosh, what is this life? This ain't the life I wanted, and how did I get here? And, they're kind of stuck where they are, and it's not good. We all know. We've heard the stories. This face in the mirror stares at me, demanding, who are you? What will you become? And taunting, you don't even know. Chastened, I cringe and agree. And then, because I'm still young, I stick out my tongue. And that was by Merriam, Conversations with Myself, 1964. So, that's kind of how we all are, look in the mirror, who am I? What am I going to be, and eventually, like I said, that's what your 20s are for, to figure that out. So that you can get that foundation underneath of you by the time you're 30, and start, pairing up and, bringing other new little people into the world. And then we're going to focus on Jackie Robinson, the baseball legend. On April 15th, 1947, when 28-year-old Jack Roosevelt, Jackie Robinson, put on a Brooklyn Dodgers uniform and strode onto Ebbets Field, he became the first African American in the 20th century to play Major League Baseball. By the end of a spectacular first season, in which he was named Rookie of the Year, Robinson's name had become a household word. So, being the first, African American player in the sport of, the major leagues. And then he's a household name by the end of the year. By the end of his first season, he's a household name. 2 years later, he was voted baseball's most valuable player. During his 10 years with the Dodgers, the team won 6 pennants, and Robinson played in 6 consecutive All-Star games. After his retirement, he won first ballot election to the Hall of Fame. So, what would have baseball missed out on if they hadn't allowed, Jackie Robinson to be in the major leagues? If they'd have kept, those him and the guys after him back in the Negro leagues, you would have never heard about it, except maybe passed down by word of mouth, in that society. Robinson's athletic prowess and dignified demeanor in the face of racist jibes, threats, hate mail, and attempts at bodily harm won the respect of the baseball world. Within the next decade, most major league teams signed African American players. So he set the trend. They're like, hey, if he could do that, maybe one of these other guys could do that for us. Baseball had become one of the first institutions in modern society to accept blacks on a relatively equal basis. And they're saying relatively here because I'm sure there was still segregation going on. His mother, Mallie Robinson, was a determined, deeply religious woman who imbued her children with moral strength and pride. So, that's something that is necessary if you're going to get out in the world and make a difference. Intent on providing them with a good education, she moved her family to Pasadena, California. So, she wanted to make sure her kids got a good education. I don't know whether she felt she was ignorant or her parents were or whatever, but she didn't want her children to be ignorant. Jackie Robinson lived for sports. He idolized his older brother Mac, who won a silver medal in the 1936 Olympics, so it ran in the family. By the time Jackie was in junior high school, he was a star in his own right. He also did odd jobs after school. Still, he had time on his hands. Robinson later reflected that he might have become a full-fledged juvenile delinquent had it not been for the influence of 2 men. One was an auto mechanic, Carl Anderson, who pointed out that it didn't take guts to follow the crowd, that courage and intelligence lay in being willing to be different. So, with that free time on his hands, he might have been out there doing stuff he didn't need to be doing, but he found a mentor in this person who said, anybody can follow the crowd. If you want to be somebody special, you need to be different. The other was a young African American minister, Carl Downs, who lured Robinson and his friends into church-sponsored athletics, listened to their worries, helped them find jobs, and got them to help build a youth center, an alternative to hanging out on street corners. Later, while in college, Robinson served as a volunteer Sunday school teacher at the church. So see, when people saying about there's nothing good, when I worked out in our West End, I worked with a lot of ministers, a couple bishops, and there are a lot of churches who are involved in their communities and who are trying to help, underprivileged youth get a little leg up in the world and realize that they are somebody. They don't have to grow up and be a thug or, a drug dealer or whatever, So getting your children involved in some type of, church or, group is a good idea to kind of keep them off the streets and keep them, interested in themselves, being more than just someone who follows, the crowd around. Teenagers are on the threshold of love, of life's work, and of participating in adult society. So we know when you're a teenager, the hormones are kicking in, and you feel like you're in love. Every boyfriend I had, I loved him, and I did. But I might not have understood exactly what that meant at the time, because I especially didn't have, the best uh, examples on what that looked like. And you're thinking about your life's work, what you're going to do, and you're getting ready to be an adult, and you can't. Most of us are chomping at that bit. There are some kids who aren't ready and they don't want to go out and be an adult, but most of us are chomping at the bit. We can't wait to get out there and become adults so we can, have our own lives. Today, research is increasingly focusing on how to help young people whose environments are not optimal to avoid hazards that can keep them from fulfilling their potential. So, like I say, there are a lot of groups, community centers, and people. It's even like counselors in school now have different programs, to help kids think. Like in my children's school, it was called group. They went to meet with counselor and talk about stuff, just like group therapy. But people are realizing that you don't have to be doomed, to a particular outcome just because you come from an underprivileged home. What saved Jackie Robinson, in addition to the influence of his indomitable, hardworking mother, his older brothers, and his adult mentors, were his talent and his passion for athletics, which ultimately enabled him to channel his drive, energy, audacity, and rebellion against racism in a positive direction. So he took all that anger and attitude, directed that towards baseball, and we all know what happened. Factors that contribute to an adolescent's sense of self, such as appearance and school achievement, kind of dominate this age. Teenagers are really worried about how they look to others and how well they're doing in school. If there's any teenagers listening, I'm going to tell you now, it don't matter how you look to others. It matters how you look to yourself, and if you're happy with yourself, if you like the way you look, find the look that you like and stick with it. And the people who actually like you will be okay with the way you look. So, achievement is good, but school is not for everybody. So, if you can get the grades and go on to college and get the grades, good. Try and do it. If you know you can't, and that's there's some esteem levels in there because people, I can't. I don't think I can. I can't. But you could if you tried hard. So, and you kind of know where you fall in that. The search for identity. The search for identity, which Erikson defined as a coherent conception of the self, made up of goals, values, and beliefs to which the person is solidly committed, comes into focus during the teenage years. As a kid, you kind of know who you are, what you're up to. And then when you become a teenager and the brain starts becoming more mature, you start kind of thinking like, oh, I've been kind of liking this and that, going with the flow. Now, who am I? You want to find your own self. And that's kind of how we differentiate the humans and animals. The animals are like children. They can understand so much, they can help you or whatever. But, they have a very small little self. They might decide the food that they like the most, the thing they like to do the most. But as far as, the broader of who would I be when I grow up, it's not really a thing with them. So in order to be a individual, you have to have a coherent conception of yourself. Meaning you have to know who you are. That is hard, and some people never get there. If you want to get there, you have to work at it. It's not something that's gonna pop up in your brain one day. Oh well, okay, I've been laying down. Okay. The Buddha sat under a tree for however long he said. I would have to look that up. In general, those of us who want to even figure out who we are, it takes years and years of study, of introspection, of meditation, or whatever. to find out who you are. And of course, you're going to have goals. What do I want to do with the rest of my life? Like I said, that's what your 20s are for. You know, you've planned, you've got your education, and now you need to find a vocation to, you know, make a living with and figure out who you're going to be for the rest of your life. So, you know, you'll have to know what your goals are, your values. Those might be something you inherited from your parents, or, you know, a teacher that you heard, or a church group, or, you know, whatever. In general, if you're hanging around with bad kids, it's not great to adopt their values because, you know, there are a lot of kids out there who are unhappy, you know, and they want you to be miserable, and they're nihilistic, and yeah, so don't let other people, you know, tell you your values. You know, find them for yourself. What do you believe? And that's important. What do you believe? So, you know, you have to be committed to these things in order to find yourself. You can't be going whichever way the wind blows and be wishy-washy and expect you're going to figure out who you are, because that's not how that works. These things, you know, in your teenage years are things you're going to start to see. You're going to start making a plan and following through with your plan, and plans change. Like I say, you might get to a certain point and think, this ain't for me. You know, I'd rather do this. This is more attractive to me. I think I like this better. No, I'd rather do this. And, you know, that happens. Adolescents' cognitive development now enables them to construct a theory of self. So as your brain grows, as you mature, your cognition, or your thought process, now enables you to create a portrait of who you are. And of course, you're going to be tweaking that for the rest of your life if you're willing to grow and learn. So, you know, but in adolescence, this is when this starts to come about, you know. You start to realize, I'm going to be an adult soon. I need to have a plan. So, as Erikson emphasized, a teenager's effort to make sense of the self is not a kind of maturational malaise. So, you know, some people felt like, you know, it's just a thing with teenagers, you know, just trying to figure this out. You know, it's a phase, you know. It's not. It's just kind of a necessary thing if you are to be a, you know, fulfilled individual. It is a part of a healthy, vital process that builds on the achievements of earlier stages. So all the stuff you did before when you were a baby, a toddler, a little kid, a bigger kid, now into your adolescence, you're all that built to where you are now, and is the, you know, foundation for going forward into your adult life. On trust, and you have to learn trust. You have to trust yourself to make the good decisions for yourself. So, you know, if you're not good at making good decisions for yourself, that's something you need to learn. You need to start weighing out the pros and cons. That's what I've had coaching clients and students who were not, they were older folks, but not to that point in their development yet. And so I would say you need to make a list, pros and cons. What is the good thing if you do this? What is the bad things if you do this? And then you look at that and you weigh it out and you decide, you know, what it is. If this is a bad choice for you, if this is a good choice for you. And most people have an idea anyway. They just, you know, second guess themselves, or, you know, listen to the little voices in their head that's saying one thing or another that they might have heard from parents or whoever, mean teacher, whatever. So, you know, you have to learn to trust yourself and put a little trust in others. Now, having said that, remember Jesus said, be ye wise as serpent and as gentle as doves. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to be run over or hurt. You know, and by run over, I mean like used, squished, abused. Because you're trying to be super trusting of others. You know, keep one eye open, as they say. Autonomy. Eventually, you're going to have to get out of your parents' house. Rarely there's a case where that never happens. And you're going to have to be an autonomous person. So you're going to have a job and a place to live And so the end result of adolescence is autonomy. Once you head out of adolescence and into your 20s, you should be getting ready to be on your own. A lot of parents let their kids live with them in college, of course, because uh, it would be hard for a college student to work full time and afford an apartment. There are some who do it, but for the most part, most college kids still live at home, and then when they get a job, they go out on their own. But that is one of the milestones of the end of adolescence, is to be an autonomous being. Um, Initiative. You have to have the drive to do what you need to do and what you want to do. So, if that's been a problem with you and, you were lazy, you thought, well, I could have done this, but, I didn't want to bother or whatever, then you're lacking the initiative. If you want something, then you need to get your gumption up, get your initiative going, and go for it, because that's the only way you're going to get it. In industry, same thing. You have to be industrious. You have to be willing to do the work, and that's a problem. I talked with a lot of my life coaching clients about is you got to be willing to do the work. If you want this, you have to do the work to make it necessary. And a lot of people who are damaged, I hate to use that word, people, survivors of abuse, they just can't get there. There are people who get to be older people and are still, not willing to do what it would take to live the life that they want. And lays the groundwork for coping with the psychosocial issues of adult life. Because let's face it, grown-up life is hard. There are some, psychosocial issues, because in general, now the world is changing today, so, this might not be true for everyone, but in general, like if you were to school and you disagree with a kid, y'all might fight after school. But as an adult, you can't really say, meet me out in the parking lot and we're going to fight, or you lose your job, you get arrested, So there is an adjustment to adult life. You have to be able to get along with others, even people you don't like, and people who rub you the wrong way and are mean to you. There are proper channels, going to a supervisor, asking to be moved to a different department or whatever to get away from this person. You have to be able to negotiate adult life, and that is hard for a lot of people. Erikson, identity versus identity confusion. The chief task of adolescence, said Erikson, is to resolve the crisis of identity versus identity confusion, or identity versus role confusion, so as to become a unique adult with a coherent sense of self and a valued role in society. So, as you're late adolescent, you need to figure out who you are, what you want to do, and what you're going to do with your life. And that is a big leap from being a kid to that point. This identity crisis is seldom fully resolved in adolescence. Issues concerning identity crop up again and again throughout adult life. And of course, we know about the midlife crisis. Who am I? I didn't do what I wanted to do. So at that point in time, late adolescence, that's when that's the most, severe. But in life, it can crop up again and again. Who am I? What did I? And that's just something you have to figure out for yourself. Because if you're letting other people tell you, then you're doing the wrong thing and they're doing the wrong thing, and you're not going to end up being very happy about that. According to Erikson, adolescents form their identity not by modeling themselves after other people, as younger children do, but by modifying and synthesizing early identifications into a new psychological structure, greater than the sum of its parts. So they think about, their past when they were little kids, when they were, bigger kids, preteens, and who they wanted to be and what they wanted to do. And now they start to take all this, plus the information they're learning in high school and, college for, later teens, and putting this all together, and thinking about who am I, who do I want to be, what do I want to do, and that on average is the time where this starts to solidify, because everybody's different, so to form an identity, adolescents must ascertain and organize their abilities. So they must, what am I good at? Is this something I would like to do? Is this something I can do and support myself with? So they have to be able to figure that out. Their needs, if they want to be, an artist, but they're not recognized yet, to decide they're going to go out on their own and live and just paint. Well, when their second month's rent comes due, that might be a problem. So they have to know, what are my needs? I probably need a job that's making X amount of money, even though I'd like to do these other things. And, I'm going to tell you, like I told a lot of my clients and students, you can start after work doing things you want to do. You should always have time for your hobbies, anything creative that you want to do. And then, like, you could go to booths, set up booths on the weekend at events and things. And you might never make more money doing that than you would at a real job. But it will enrich your life. You'll feel good about it. And the day that you are making more money at that than your real job, then you can say, adios, real job, and, have this as your endeavor. Interests, you gotta know what you're interested in. And you, like I said, usually the thing that comes easiest to you and that you like the most is the thing you're going to be most interested in. And desires, and we all know, our desires for life, so that they can be expressed in a social context. Because, like I said, once you're grown up, you can't be acting all crazy and stuff like you did when you were younger. You're expected to live in society and be a productive member and not make waves or cause too much trouble, unless that's your job is to make waves. So, Erikson saw the prime danger of this stage as identity or role confusion, which can greatly delay reaching psychological adulthood. So, like I say, there are some people who never finish navigating this stage. They work from one job to the next job to the next job. They don't know what they want to do with their life. They, just like I had a young couple came in for a little, premarital coaching, and they were like, oh, we just want to work. We don't want to do anything else. We don't want to go to college. We just want to work. Well, that probably changed later on. But for then, they were happy with that. And we're most fulfilled when we're doing what we love, and we're feel like we're doing something, we're contributing something. So, a lot of people, like I say, they just move from one job to the next, and they never feel fulfilled. So that can be a problem throughout life. He himself did not resolve his own identity crisis until his mid-20s. So, he spoke from experience. He didn't know what he wanted to do or anything, and probably he had several jobs, and then maybe he started talking to people and trying to help people, and he's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I want to go into psychology, So, you just don't know. Some degree of identity confusion is normal. Like I say, we all have doubts. We all second guess ourselves. And other people can mean well, but they can say mean things to make you get discouraged and not believe in yourself. So, we're going to have some doubts, and that's part of life, It accounts for both the seemingly chaotic nature of much of adolescents' behavior and teenagers' painful self-consciousness. Because, like I say, your hormones are kicking, you're out of control. a lot of teenagers kind of revert back to toddler years, only instead of laying on the floor or kicking and screaming, it's going into the room, slamming the door, So, there's some reversion there. And, they are very self-conscious. They are worried about how they look, how they smell, how others think of them. That is the age where that is the most important. Thank goodness most people do outgrow that. And you stop caring what other people think. If you're, wise, you will. Because nobody else is you. They can't be you. They can't live your life. So what does it matter what they think? It don't, does it? Cliquishness and intolerance of differences, both hallmarks of the adolescent social scene, are defenses against identity confusion. So, they form these little cliques. It's like, oh, we're the theater, we're the band group, we're the cool kids, we're the, emo kids, all these cliques are to have an identity. You identify with these other people who are like you, and that's why you kind of hang out together. And the intolerance of differences, that can be unfortunate if that carries on into adulthood, because that's where we can get some of those ists and isms in there, and that's not a good way to be if you want to get along in society. It's a big world, and there are people of different sexes, different races, who speak different languages, who believe differently in their religions. So the best thing you can do yourself is become a tolerant, well-rounded person. That will make your life a little easier. Adolescents also may show confusion by regressing into childishness to avoid resolving conflicts, or by committing themselves impulsively to poorly thought out courses of action. Like I said, some teenagers seem to remind you of when they were toddlers. And they can, make impulsive decisions, as we all know, with, things like partying, drinking, doing drugs, stealing cars, enjoy riding and things of that nature. So these are not good things. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. Hopefully that helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.